Translanguaging and bilingualism. Now, when we are talking about bilingualism and when we are talking about translanguaging, the main difference between the two is that the former is focusing on languages and the second one is focused on the practices or the discursive practices of the speakers or bilingual speakers. In any case, whether it is bilingualism or it is translanguaging, it is never based on this construct of 1 plus 1 is equal to 2 languages. That what we mean to say over here is that we cannot assume that a bilingual who knows 2 languages is equal to 2 monolinguals. They are essentially different in the way they use languages, and the way that they use languages is what we call translanguaging. So this construct has been borrowed from St. Williams and cited in Baker 2001, and it has been popular ever since to highlight the basic difference between how bilinguals use languages as opposed to monolinguals. And the main thing that is to be emphasized when we use translanguaging is that we should not compare bilingual linguistic competence or bilinguals' use of languages to monolinguals, rather than they need to be seen as a thing, as a space within its own. So the focus on translanguaging is on the discursive practices or the way languages in the repertoire of different languages is used to engage with bilingual words, and how do they construct meaning through it. Now, because this is a much more complex phenomena, it goes beyond code switching. We will also see what code switching is, but when we are talking about translanguaging, it includes code switching, but it is not vice versa. Languaging actually is the hybrid use of languages simultaneously in a systematic, affiliative, sensitive way, and it's a strategic use of different languages as bilinguals try to make sense of what is going on. So it is much more complex than borrowing words from other languages. It is, as we will discuss, it is not simple borrowing. It's also about transforming the two languages as they come together. Now, bilingual communities actually always translanguage. They have to translanguage to construct the meaning. The thing is, for them, these two languages often merge as one linguistic repertoire, and they don't hardly ever stop to think how these two languages are different or similar, although, as we have said, that because they have this higher metalinguistic skills, because when they learn a language, they also understand the connotations of that language and how that language denotes different social realities. They are aware of it, but it becomes so subconscious that it becomes easier for them to use it in different contexts. So if you watch a bilingual family, and if you think of you yourself also at a family meal, sitting together, you will realize that you are translanguaging also. So you might use certain Punjabi words if you are in Punjab, or Sindhi words, or whole sentence in Sindhi, because over here in this family meal, if you have these older people also, grandparents sitting around, you will try to talk to them, translanguage in regional language, then you'll shift to English, then you'll shift to Urdu. So there's a whole different repertoires of languages that are being used at this family meal. And more often than not, you translanguage to interpret certain signs, talking about, for instance, written language. And you use this written language, for instance, if it's a newspaper, you might actually reinterpret it in another language and describe it to someone else in yet another language and discuss it in another language. This is all translanguaging. Another instance of translanguaging is, think about the minority children who are studying in schools and learning a standard variety. More often than not, then these children become the interpreters for their families who do not have access to the standard variety. So they are constantly moving back and forth, interpreting, explaining, translating their parents what is going on or what a certain sign says, and they are as such also engaging in multiple literacy practices. And it is interesting to know how these multiple literacies are embedded or enclosed in these translanguaging practices. More often than not, for instance, you might find little children in US context who might read in English the storybooks because they're available there. Then they pray in Spanish. Come back to Pakistan, for instance. The children are children also. They read mostly in Urdu or English. And when it comes to praying, they use Arabic, or they almost always restrict themselves to Urdu or a regional language. This is translanguaging. So translanguaging with peers, parents, and in church and mosques is very, very common in bilingual communities.